want to talk tonight again about what we were talking about names, etc. I just want to start with a little vignette, and we'll go on to the names. Now, I'm sure everybody's heard of Rabbi Yaakov Hillel. He's the anti-Makubal Makubal. He's a big Makubal, but he's like anti a lot of the shysters and fraudster Makubalim. Like he had published a whole sefer. This probably he's a prolific Mechaber Svarim. Tens and tens of Svarim. And I say this not as a knock. His Svarim are a bit repetitive. If you know his content, he has, I don't know, call it 10 Svarim worth of content or 5 Svarim worth of content, then it's a lot of it is rejiggered in many, many different ways. Shurim on this sefer or that sefer, etc. Not as a knock. It's very good Torah, very interesting, very great read. His Chuvas Vayash Vayam is very colorful. It's a genre of its own, like Kabbalah and Halacha, the interplay between Kabbalah and Halacha in like a very lumdish, sophisticated way. Beautiful, beautiful Svarim. But probably his most famous sefer that he ever wrote is a sefer called Tamim Tia. It started off as a tshuva in Chelik Aleph of Vayash Vayam, his volume of his tshuvas, and then later on it turned into whole countries. It was published in English called Faith and Folly. It was published many times. And basically what it is an anti-Kabbalah Makubal sefer. It's basically like to show how a lot of the tricks of the trade craft and the tricks of the trade and different things that people are hoodwinking people for and fleecing money out of people, and he's exposing a lot of the scams, and I think we're due for an update, maybe naming names even. But this is like one of the most famous Svarim. Now in it he has a lot of haskamas from various Gedolei Yisrael, wide-ranging thing. I don't think there's any other sefer that has haskama from Shach and Yitzchak Kaduri, like back to back. I think that's probably, I don't know all Svarim, but I think that's probably like a bit of an exception to the rule. He has a wide-ranging set of haskamas. Now in it he has a very, very short haskama from Chaim Kanievsky, and he writes a story that happened to him personally, and it's I think it sets the table well for our discussion. Here's the shaila. He says, L'chvoit hagoyin ha'adim Marinu Rav Chaim Kanievsky, Avakish mikvoit terasi levarli das Marinu Rabbeinu Aviv Zatzal. I would like to know what your father, the disciple's position was. B'negei l'tufa zu shel anashim mesiyamim. Here are these people, asher rabbim poinim aleim. Many people turn to them for advice. B'shailas binyan asidis, regarding questions regarding the future, or schoolis, and his amis shemis, and the matching up of names. This is a popular thing. People, when they do a shidduch, they go to a Baba, a Makubal, a Rebbe, say, do these names match each other? Like, are these good names? Now, and this is a common thing. He says, B'didi havi ovdi, he says, Hashem mitoichel amaditi. There was a story that I engaged in personally. From it I learned, Shagoyner Kaddish HaStipler, Zatzal, Hisnagid b'chol teikif lan hagas elu. There is a story that I had with the disciple that told me that the disciple is very against this. Amnam yeshnam hamafitzim shmuas seisrus b'shmai. I've heard since then many different rumors that the disciple was pro this, the disciple did check the names, he did, so I know you, please just tell me, what did your father hold? And Rav Chaim's tshuva is a short tshuva. He says, Yeduali das Adoni Avi Meri V'Ravi Zatzal, Shehirchik Ma'oid Kol Advarim Elu. He very, very much distanced himself from all these things. And he warned many times that there are many potentially surim that a person could violate by engaging in this type of, what do you say? Yeah, well, the whole sefer will show you which isurim you're over when you. It's the sefer is called Tamim Tia, which is the mitzvah, but there's many other isurim involved. Now, in the footnote over here, Yaakov Hillel brings the story, and he's a great either he's a good storyteller or he's a very dramatic story, maybe both. I don't know if anybody knows the Stipler's personality, Ki'ilu. I mean, the Stipler was he could get angry. The Stipler could yell, he could scream. He was like a strong person. I know there's all sorts of cute stories. The disciple couldn't hear well, so he would get irritated, and people were bothering him and wasting his time, and he would get angry. He would wave his cane. There's even pictures. There's a picture, I think. I have a picture of the disciple waving his cane at the photographer. He had the ability to get angry, and in this whole story over here, he explains the story. I'm going to read you some of the details. He says he had a Baal Tshuva in his yeshiva. Yaakov Hillel has a Baal Tshuva yeshiva. Yaakov Hillel has a big amount of yeshivas and koilim and machons. A very successful Rosh Yeshiva. He built, a Kabbalah yeshiva, many koilim. His sons have machons. They publish old svarim. Machon Avat Shalom, I think, had published already 1,000 svarim. They're a very, very popular and successful enterprise. He says that he had in his Baal Tshuva program, he had a bacher there who was a sticky guy about Tshuva. He got engaged, and he went to one of these Pana Miyad Le'echad HaMekubalim B'Yerushalayim. And the guy looked at the names, and he says, no, your name and the Kal's name, it's a no-go, break it off right away. And this guy he was very happy with the shidduch. He didn't want to break it off, and he was heartbroken. He didn't know what to do. And he came to me, and he said, I don't know what to do. What do I make of this? So he says, I told him, ignore this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Ignore this fake makubal, and stick with the name that you have. Stick with the shidduch, it's fine. But he says, I'm a young person. So this is writing obviously in the 70s or the 80s. Rabbi Hillel is 80 years old today. So in the 70s or 80s, do the math. And he says, I'm a young man. Don't be samech on me myself. Go to the Stipler in Bnei Brak and see what the Stipler says. Now the Stipler couldn't hear. So they wrote down the story. The person, Shtalshis, wrote down his Baal Tshuva, who became from, he got engaged, etc. They wrote it on a paper and he brought it into the Stipler's house. And he says, him and this Baal Tshuva and a third person went together. And they went as follows. Nichnasu ala kodesh pnima. K'shebiyadeiim daf echad asher olav kasav kol ha'maisa. He says, V'hinei ach hischil hagoyin hana l'krei aksav. The Stipler started reading the letter. When miyad hischil shayig kari, he started roaring like a lion, miroiv kasei, from his anger, v'tzayre al ivas ha'emes, because of this like bastardization of the truth. V'hispate b'lshonis kashim klapi noisan eitzan al ba'amroi. Ma roitze shaloi yischatnu. What does he want? He wants him not to get engaged. And as he read more, he get angrier and angrier. He says, till the people who were in charge of the Stipler's house came and kicked us out of the room. They said, well, whatever you're doing here, this is not a good thing. Go out of the room. Go wait in the waiting room. He said, we stood in the waiting room for 15 minutes. The Stipler read the letter a few times, yelling to himself, he says. Like yelling, what a scam and a shanda, and what is this? What are they doing? And finally, the Stipler calmed down a little bit. He called us back into the room. He took the chassan and he said, don't worry, everything's going to be good. He calmed him down. He gave him a bracha. Told him, go about your way, do what you need to do, get married, everything's going to be fine. This is the story, this anecdote that he brings here.
What happened? He got married?
Yadu Ali, sha'achin zachu azug anisker lahakam bayis namin b'Yisrael, ala tayrav, ala voida, ad kana ma'aser shayim. Because I know that this couple went on, they built a beautiful family, they had a successful life, everybody was good, everything was happy, it has a happy ending. Now, this, I think this little vignette in the Haskamas of the Sefer Tamim really highlights a certain akuda that I want to talk about over here, is that names have this great potency. Now, Lamashal, we know Rabbi Yehuda Chassid has halachas, that, right, who's supposed to marry who, etc., and maybe that's still weiter, something we could get to at a later date, don't hold me to it. But names have a certain, don't. Names have a certain strong potency. Mitzad Sheni, names are not the be-all and end-all. Like if the name doesn't match, if these two names are a bad combo, then you throw everything away. Like, so what is the amount of potency that names have? Where are they imbued with the shivas from? Where does it come from? And who has the ability, etc. Now, Stam, I came across this today. I'll just share this, something interesting. Let's do this in order. I'll tell you one more story. This is what my father says over this story always, a first-hand story. There was a mashulach that he knew, an older guy, a guy in his 70s. When my father was a kid, this guy was in his 70s, who came to America. He was always collecting. And when he got down, he used to, I think, hang out by my grandparents' house. Like he, would sleep there or something. And when he got down to talking to him about his life, he would always say, the reason why I'm a le'yutzlach and I have to collect for a living is it's Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld's fault. What do you mean it's Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld's fault? He said, by my bris, he says, my father, we lived in mandatory Palestine under the British, and my father was part of the Irgun or the Lechi, whatever, one of the, the revolutionary movements, and he was fired up against the British. That was all that was on his mind. And it was in the early 1930s, after the riots of 1929, and he was all fired up. And by my bris, he was mechabed Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld with Kriya Shem, and Rabbi Yosef Chaim got up over there, and Rabbi Yosef Chaim said, V'yikara Shmai B'Yisrael, and my father says, Nimrod, Shuhu Yimrod Ba'Angliam. He wanted to be Nimrod, he should be married in the British. And Rabbi Yosef Chaim looked at him and he said, mm-mm. And he said, again, Nimrod, Shuhu Yimrod Ba'Angliam, mm-mm. The third time, Rabbi Yosef Chaim waved it off. Rabbi Yosef Chaim says, he changed his name, he said, Yigal. Shu Yigalenu min Anglia. That's what Yosef Chaim said. He said, because Yosef Chaim stole my name, and he gave me some other names, ever since then I haven't had a lick of success. That's what the guy used to say. So, names have this, funny story. So,
it's in his head, that's the reason why
names have this potency. So let's talk about where this potency comes from, and who Kilu has this ability to imbue it. Now, it's interesting, I came across in a sefer, I don't know who composed this tefillah, but I saw it in a few different svarim. It's brought down a tefillah as follows: Kaidem hachlatas nesinas Hashem. When a couple sits down to decide what to name their child, they're supposed to say a tefillah together before they decide the name. It goes as follows: Av harachamim, Gali v'yadua lefanecha, sheritzayni lasas ritzaynecha, v'chol machma de tevel ka'ayin nechshavuli, neged ritzaynecha v'shchina suzecha, shmarna haftachascha, lazer habolatayir. Help out those who come to try to do the right thing. V'hidieni derech zuelech, ki lasas ritzaynecha l'kai chafatzi. I want to do the right thing. V'haver no meir shavei inai, find zachar hachamech Hashem chazdecha. Give me the ability to be mechaven to the truth, by giving a name to my child. I know that the name that I'm going to give him is very, very integral to his lifetime of avodah and kedusha. A person's lifeblood or his ability, his ruchnistic lifeblood, We'll see maybe not just Ruchni, it's draws from his name, Ushmoik, Visharish Nishmasai, he's Ratzin and Refiv Yagin Levi Hashem Tzuri V'Gayli. Now this is a tefillah that's brought down in various different Sidurim, Svarim. I think the first place is the Oitzer Tefillas Yisrael. I don't know who the Mechaber of the tefillah is, but it's highlighting this great potency of the names. Now, Ad Kedei Kach, that there are Reb Mordechai Gross, who's a big Dayan in Bnei Brak, a big Makobel Dayan. He's also wrote, 200 Svarim or something, like a tremendous Talmid Chacham. He has a sefer called Shema Garim, which means the name causes it. And it's all about name-related things. It's a super light sefer. It's more like a parental handbook, like very light on the Maramakamis, and just like some guidelines. And in there he brings that there are many deists that say that when parents are trying to decide the name, they should not consult with anybody. Don't consult with anybody, not even a rabbi. It's not their decision. It's the parents' decision. And we'll see. Let's just stop. Now, of course, he says that if the parents are at some sort of loggerhead and they can't figure it out on their own, so then they should talk to their rabbi, and etc. Let's go through a little bit the sugi behind this and some of the details. So now, the idea that a name is potent really comes from two Mefurish Gemaras. There's a Gemara in Brachas and the Zayin and Beis that we learned that says, the Gemara says that the Gemara brings a few different names, but my Ros, for example, the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yechanan, Shezachsem v'yatzim menu David, Sheriu la Kadosh Baruch Hu b'shiris v'tish brachas. Minallah d'shma garim. How do we know the name is what caused it? Amar V'lazid Amar Kor l'chu chazu b'mifalei Hashem asher some shemois, which is not the right nekuda. Shemois. I'll think it was shamois ela shemois. Read it names. Asher some shemois ba'aretz, who gave names in the land. And from this, the Gemara in Brachas learns. The Gemara has other examples of it. That's not the only example. That names cause shma garim. The name is what causes. Meaning the name has in it all the potency and all the name is so to speak like the DNA code for a person's lifetime abilities. Now, interestingly, there's a famous Gemara in Yuma Daf Pegimel and Beis that tells us a story, and the Gemara says as follows: it says, Reb Meir have badik b'shma. Reb Meir always was someone who checked names, meaning Reb Meir paid attention to the name. Someone had a name, he would pay attention what that name implies, what it means. And the Gemara tells us a story. It says, Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi have ka'azli b'orcha. They were traveling on the way together. Reb Meir have a dayik b'shma. Reb Meir always paid attention to names. Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi have a dayik b'shma. They didn't pay attention to names. Kimatu lahu duchtav, and they got to a certain locale. Bo'ush bezicha, they wanted a place to stay. Yahavulei, they went somewhere. Amrulei mashem, what's your name? Amalahu Kider. My name is Kider. Amar Nei, Reb Meir says, Shmamina Adam Rashahu. If says this is a bad guy, Shenemar Kidar Tapuchas Hema. Reb Meir just met the guy for the first time. He doesn't like his name. He says, this guy's a Russia. This guy's a guy you have to stay away from. Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, Ashlimu Lekisayu. They gave him their wallets. There was no safes in the room. They gave him their wallets to hold on to for the night. Reb Meir Leashlim Lekisar. Reb Meir kept his wallet under his pillow. Azul, Isvei, fine, the Gemara tells us a story. Ultimately, he ends up stealing the wallets and he won't give it back. And the Gemara tells us about an interesting scheme, how they fooled him into getting back the wallets, where they went and they told his wife that your husband, they saw that he had some sort of like food stain on his mouth. They went and they told the wife that your husband said, if we could tell you what he had for breakfast today, then that's the simon, that's the sin. She said, yeah, so what do you have for breakfast? And she said, you made him deviled eggs. I saw I don't know how you would see deviled eggs. I saw whatever you have on your face. Whatever it is, I saw what you have in your face. And the husband comes home and he's furious at his wife and he kills her, showing his true bona fides as a bad guy. He does all sorts of criminal mischief in this one little episode. And the Gemara takes from this that on Mayim Rishonim, Amayim Achronim Hargos Nefesh, because he didn't do Mayim Achronim and wash his hands and mouth when he left the Suda, and then the Gemara ends up saying L'Besayif Havidaiki Bishma. And from this story, Reb Yehuda and Reb Yosef and Reb Yossi also learned that Reb Meir was correct, and you have to pay attention to names. Names hold in them a lot of knowledge about who this person is going to be and what this person's life story is about. So these are really two Mefurish Gemaras that say that names have like this like cheat code to the person. They give him a certain ability and they have in it certain abilities of what it is. Now, what's interesting is, and this is you say this to Gezach, is that Bimei, the Torah, they did not name after people. If you look in the Torah, everything's about events or times or stam chosen, which does give a lot of rationale to this idea that names they harbored a significance, right? You look at the Torah a lot of times gives the rationale for their name. The name, now, although over there it's like it's Me'ena Ma'ura, the Torah is usually telling us it's because of something that happened, and it's not because of something that's going to happen in the future, but the Gemara extrapolates from these names things that are going to happen into the future also. So you see that names have a reason. Now, but B'zan Hazeh, we don't do that. Now we do differently, right? We don't name exactly that way. So let's talk about B'zan a little bit. So now there's a famous thing, the Sheh B'Shem that Rizal. It comes from Rav Chaim Vital and Shar Gulgulim and Hakdama Chaf Gimel or Chaf Beis is really another place that he says it also. And he says as follows. I'll just read you the little bit of the words without going too deeply. There's a lot of Torah on there's two levels to the name and the whole Kabbalistic thing. But he says as follows. Kasher Noila Adam, when a person is born, V'kairun le'aviv v'imay shem, echad ha'ila b'daita, and his parents call him a name that pops into their mind. Eine ba'akroyu b'hizdamin. It's not just happenstance and just a coincidence. Kiyem HaKadosh Baruch Hu mesim b'piv, Hashem hu ha'muchrach. Hashem puts in their mouth, so to speak, the appropriate name al neshama he, for that neshama. Asher Kamoisha Kasav, like the Gemara, like he's referencing the Gemara in Brachas, Asher Sham Shemes Ba'aretz. Kifi Makam Ever Shabbat Me'aliyah, and Shemena, it continues on very Arizaldik. So Shema Garam, he brings, and there's more about it. So the Arizal, the Chaim Vital is bringing B'Shem the Arizal, that when names are given, they have a certain potency. And not only that, every parent, Bisman Hazeh, who's naming his child, the parents are imbued with a certain, call it Ruach HaKodesh, or Me'ein Nevuah of some variety, and that's how it's quoted in many Svarim, that it's some sort of Ruach HaKodesh, or Nevuah, or something that's shared on the parents, that they have the ability to give a name that's appropriate for this neshama, to bring this neshama to its completion. Now, this is brought down, the Magid Misharm Pasha Shemais brings it down. I'll read you what he says. He says, Amar Rabbanon, I'll take your Shamais el Shemais. The man de Ikri Avram, someone who has the name Avram, Noitel Etzad Asiyas Chesed. His personality leads him towards Asiyas Chesed. The man de Iskri Yosef, someone who's called Yosef. Now, this is an interesting line. Oy giber ba'arayis, oy zanum afanis la'acherim. Now, here you see it's not only like it's dual potential. Like either he's a giber in his arayis, or he's a big vir, he's a big nadvin. Like there's like so many personalities that could be included in it, not just ruchnistic things. Just like Yosef fed all his brothers, etc. Afagav the inish Rashi Islu Shma the Tzadika. Even though you find some Rishayim that have good names, Hu Shma Lav the Mignahu, it wasn't enough to save them. The Mukamak Islu Natia Lemida the Ramyu Dachi Shma. Now, this the Magid B'Sharm is already addressing this Nakuda here, is that sometimes you find successful names and a guy who has absolutely no success, good names and a bad guy, bad names and a good guy. This is not a perfect science. So the Magid B'Sharm says no. Sometimes obviously a person has bechira. A person could still do what he wants to do with his life. It's not a guarantee that you're home clean because you have a name that implies something good. It just means there's a certain nakuda that name suits you in whatever type of way it suits you. Now the problem is that it's hard to understand what does it mean. Like a person's name holds everything in it. Like you're born so predetermined. Like you have a name, now you have a whole charted out for you in life, or whatever. Now the truth is, what do you say? Yeah, it's just almost seems like we're pigeonholing everybody. Whatever name you have, that's it. You're stuck with that name. Right. So that's if you say it's a Ruach HaKodesh, it's a match to the Sherish HaNeshama. But the answer has to be still in the Rabbi Yaakov Ibn Chabib and his Pirush and Yaakov and others and other Svarim say it, and it's obvious truth. And really, the Magid Mesharim is alluding to it.
Somebody names their kid Winner versus.
Yeah. So I'll tell you something interesting. There's I forget. This is one of the Yeki Svarim. I forgot. One of the Bamberger says that Reb Meir, when he bumped into a guy named Kedar, the pasuk says Kedar Tapuch Meimah. It implies it's a bad name. It implies bad things. He said, what type of father names his kid Hitler? That means this kid was raised in a situation where everything is bad from the get-go. Reb Meir, he says this. It seeing a bad name incorporates nature and nurture. Like a father who gives his name Nimrod or Kedar, it's like something's wrong here. You're not doing it right. Now that's not how some say that, but others say, and this has to be a simple truth, is that it just shows you, just like every person has a unique personality, right? And his personality makes his particular strengths and weaknesses, his challenges and his successes, and no two people are created the same. And the Baskel that's Yosin says, if this child is going to be a Chacham or a Shaita or a Rasha or a Tzaddik or a Tippish or an Ani or an Ashir, everyone is born with a certain set of challenges. The Ruach HaKodesh is to match a name that correlates to that neshama's particular set of milas and chesronos and challenges. It's not a predeterminism. It's just similar to what the Goin says about Gilgul. The Goin says if a person wants to know what he was or what his avodas hachayim is, he should see what his particular nisayonis or what his challenges are. It's more of that type of thing of isolating the framework that your life is going to be involved in. It's not limiting you to that or whatever. That has to be the basic truth. It can't be that the name predetermines you forever. And then, it brings out what your potential is, exactly, what it could be, etc. Now, I want to break off here. Really, the natural continuation of this is to talk about naming a kid bad names, naming after Rishayim, 2 names, 3 names, 2 different people, Mishin, Kaiches, and all that. But I think we'll save that. We'll continue that. I want to talk about who gets the schos name. Let's talk about that first, because we said that Rizal says it's a nevuah that the parents get, that they're able to name. So who gets that? Who gets that schos name? Now, what's interesting is that today a lot of this is prefigured out, right? If you're a Svardi, generally what's going to happen is if you're going to have a baby, the boy will name it after his parent, right, mother or father. first, and then the next one will be the girl, and I think Chayzer Khalila. You go off and on. In the Ashkenazi world, we're a little more henpecked, and the girl gets first, and the man goes second, right? And then Chayzer Khalila. Now, it's interesting is that this is really an old shaila in the Rishonim, and it seems like this rayas that the Sephardi root was like the primary root, and the Ashkenazi root of naming, not after the father and doing something else and giving it to the mother to go first is like the later thing. Now I want to show you something interesting. There's the Psukim by Yehuda says as follows. When it talks about Yehuda having children, it says as follows. It says the pasuk is like this. It's Vatar Vateled Ben Vayikra Es Shemoi Er. Now pay attention to the diak. It says she gave birth to a child. Vayikra, he Yehuda called the baby's name Shem Er. Vatar Oid Vateled Ben Vatikra Es Shemoi Oinon. She called him Oinon. Then it continues and it says Vatoysev Oid Vateled Ben Vatikra Shemoi Shela V'Hayev Chsiv V'Ledesa Oisei. Now the Daskein Bali Atosfos Rishon points to something very interesting. He says first it says Yehuda named he called. Then it says Vatikra she called. And then it says she called again, but it gives an excuse. It says V'Hayev Chsiv V'Ledesa Oisei. She was out of town. Yehuda wasn't around when the birth transpired. So it says the Daskenim says the pasuk is teaching you that the route to do it was the man goes first. He got his shot. Yehuda got his turn. Yeah, by the Shvatim, almost all of them were named by their mothers. Right. Yeah, 1 second, hang on. You're a very good point. So I'm just saying what the Daskal came. It's a Taisus. This is what Taisus says. That the first one was given by Yehuda, the second one was given by his wife, and the third one technically should have reverted back to Yehuda, but Yehuda was out of town. Yehuda's out of town, so she gets her schos back. Now the Ramban, Afanart, I think it's Afanart. The Ramban says Tamzu ein le tam v'reach. And I think he says Drush zu ein le tam v'reach. He does not like this at all. He does not go into detail why he doesn't like it. He holds it's like bankrupt, and obviously because of what you're saying, that most of the Shvatim were named by their mothers. The by and large they were named by their mothers. They weren't named by the. Not only were some of them named by their mothers, some of them are named by the Pamalia, like the grandmothers are involved. We have other names given in the Torah from all sorts of other people, right? It's not given in this very structured shalom bayistic way of like taking turns and he was out of town, whatever. Like the Ramban doesn't like this Taskein B'Alai. Now, what's fascinating is that the Ramban himself. There's a story about the Ramban that relates to the Shaila. It's so ironic. The Ramban, there's a tshuva from the Rashbash. The Rashbash is a sixth, I don't know how you say how many greats that is, but a sixth generation grandchild of the Ramban. The Rashbash was a Rav in Algeria, I believe Algeria. He's a son of the Tashbitz. The Tashbitz was a fifth generation Anikel. He's a sixth generation Anikel. And then there's a few more generations of very famous Anikel from this family, like Shaz was Yachan Ubayaz and etc. Other ones from members of this family. Now this is a tshuva in the Rashbash, it's been Reish Tzadik Aleph. It tells a story as follows. It says, Ki Shleima b'noi shel Ramban, hayachasin shel Rabbeinu Yoina, Rabbi Sheshidach. Rabbeinu Yoina and the Ramban made a shidduch with each other. Shleima, the son of the Ramban, married Rabbeinu Yoina's daughter. Bizman hihiroyin shel b'nam harishan, when they were pregnant with their first child, Nifter Hasaba Rabbeinu Yoina. Rabbeinu Yoina died during the pregnancy of the first child. Now keep in mind, the father in this case, it's Svardim. Ramban's a Svardi. His son Shleima should be wanting to name after his father, Rabbeinu Moshe. That's what he should be wanting to do. V'amar haRamban lebnoi. The Ramban told his son, She'af shetzarech lefi haminig l'kroi l'tinik al shmi Moshe. Even though the minig would dictate, you should be calling on my name, on Moshe. Mevakesh ani sheyikru l'tinik Yoina al shem avi imish latinik. Give the name Yoina after the paternal grandfather, the maternal grandfather of this child. Shenemar v'zarach Hashem Meshubah Hashem Meshvidar Shechazal Zad Shleishak Hashem Shel Tzadik Echad Zarach Hashem Shel Tzadik Acher. It's the grandfather just died. Maybe this kid could be like the ruchnistic Yerush of this grandfather.
It's like a pity.
But it's more to it than just pity. First of all, so 1 second. There's a lot of things to take out of this tshuva. So there's a lot of things to take out of this tshuva. First of all, take out of this tshuva is that clearly the minig of the boy's side going first was already in play. A. Second thing to take out of the tshuva is that the idea of naming after a live person was already in play, because the Ramban's alive, he's the Das Torah, he's the Rishiva of the Mishpacha, and the Handlerai is that his son Reb Shlomo should have named his first child after the Ramban. So you see the original Sephardic custom, so to speak, of the boy going first, not Ashkenaz. The boy going first and naming after a live person already exists. Now, in regard to the pity, I don't think it's a pity thing. What the Ramban is saying is a more of like a Kabbalistic idea, is that there's an idea that the name that a person gives draws in it like the kaiches of the person that he's giving it from. In the Chassidish Svarim, there's a big arichas about this. In the Kubalim, there's arichas about this. And the Ramban Kaidua was an early Makubal, not exactly like Arizal Kabbalah, but an early Makubal. And the Ramban is really referencing like a Kabbalistic idea of like drawing the kaiches of the nifter into this child. He's saying like V'zarach Shemesh Ubah Shemesh, you could take some of the potency of the Reina Yoina, his ruchnistic abilities, his kaiches, whatever, and bring it into this child over here. Now, there's an interesting shayla that I saw in the modern Israeli poskim. let's say a Svardi learned in an Ashkenazi yeshiva and wants to name after his Rosh Yeshiva, B'chaye the Rosh Yeshiva. People asked this to Rav Chaim Kanievsky, they asked it to Rabbi Yashiv, they asked a lot of Litzlish Gedolim. I'm a Svardi, so by me, meaning in the Ashkenazi world, it became, hey, we don't do it, it became like a superstition, like it's like a ayin hara, like you're naming after him, he's not dead. Why are you naming after him? Like why are you naming someone who's not dead? It's fascinating because the two sides of this coin in the Sephardic world, it's kibbut of aim. And if you don't name after your father, it's like what's going on over here? It's like a pegi and kibbut of aim. And in the Ashkenazi world, it's like, well, why are you messing with me? I'm alive and well. Like, well, what's the ayin hara? Like it's a dual thing. So they asked like Litvish Gedolim, like if you someone's a Sephardi Talmud, he's an adherent of this Rosh Yeshiva, he wants a name for this Rosh Yeshiva, but the Rosh Yeshiva is alive. They asked Rabbi Yashiv said it's not a problem. They asked Rav Chaim said it's not a problem. Most of the Litvish Gedolim said that it's not an issue. You could. There are those who said not, but you could name. For a live gadol. If you're a Sephardi, it's derech eretz. It's respect. It's all It's all in good taste. Now, so where does the Ashkenazi minig? Where did it come from to change the minig that we give to the girl side first and whatever? Now, there's not really as far as I know, there's not like a clara messiah on this. I saw a few different timing. Some say as simply as this, that in the Sephardic world, kollel was not really such a thing. In the Sephardic world, they worked. They worked for a living. So when a person got married, he was working for a living, and he was like, so to speak, independent. An independent household, the man is the leader of the household. It makes sense. You name after your father first, and then the woman will have a turn. In the Ashkenazi world, where there was a system of kest and living by the shver and like all that type of systems. Now, it's hard to know when exactly those systems started and if this minig really tracks with it. I saw someone who says it, so I'm repeating it. I don't know if it checks out, fully checks out. But Kilo, you're living in your shver's house and you're going to go name after your grandfather. It's not going to work. You want the bills paid. You got to make something. You got to shtaltzu. This is mamash as basic as that. Others say that it's like a sensitivity to the woman. A woman leaves her household. She leaves her parents. It's harder for her. She moves into her husband's household. And, now she's, so to speak, tuffle and bottled her husband. So you give her So, again, it's either like a sensitivity or it's you don't have a choice and you have to shtaltzu to what the shver wants. One or the other. At some point, the Ashkenazi minig like diverged from the Sephardic minig over here. And it changed this way. Now, now there's an interesting shaila. If we're saying over here that the parents have this like a ruach hakodesh inside this like special schos, right? To name their child. Like they have the ability. I said from Ramat Chagros that there are those who say that you shouldn't even ask for advice. Don't ask for advice. You're mixing in someone who doesn't have the ruach hakodesh you have. He says there are those that say unless the gadol that you're talking to is a Baal ruach hakodesh Yedua, which I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not in close contact with the certification board right now. But unless the gadol is a Baal ruach hakodesh Yedua, then why are you mixing in someone who has less Ruach HaKodesh than you? You have Ruach HaKodesh now, and you're mixing in someone who's guessing, like what's but Maisi says fine. Now, the shaila is, let's say the parents are not around. Now, we saw from Daskein Balei Taisvis, it sounds like in those days, if the parents weren't around, she was able to give a name. Now, what happens in a case of a divorce, let's say, where the father is out of the picture, and the baby is born, and the mother gives a name. Now, Rav Moshe in Yeridea and Chelik Gimel has a tshuva about this, and I don't remember his entire. He goes through the sugya of who gets which name and etc. And I believe he says that if the mother gives the name, I forgot exactly. I don't want to misquote him. I think he says that the right thing is that she should consult with the husband. She shouldn't give a name without talking to the husband because this is a joint custody decision. This is something they both have an input in. But if she gives the name, a mother has the schus to give the name, and the name sticks. I think he handles like what happens if they each want to give a different name, and he makes like some sort of pshara for them. I didn't look up the tshuva now. It's like I remember. I'm like remembering the tshuva. I didn't look it up, but it's not interesting. Like when you're handling the schos, he mentions this thing. Now, in any case, this is just I call it like a kind of an overview of the potency and the schos relating to giving names. Maybe next week we'll continue on to particular, like naming for a Russia, naming for someone who died young, giving a male name to a female or a female name to a male. Obviously not directly because that's not fair to your child, but like one of those like crossover names. Or could you give could you name two children after the same person? Like if it's you give two whatever. What do you say?
No. He has two names, you give him one.
Yeah, but you give one in a girl version and one in a boy version. Could you name? I know Reb Scheinberg. I'm pretty sure Reb Scheinberg has two children who have the same name. Not as their only name, but he has two children who have the same name. When he named them, he came home from shul and he told his wife what he named, and she said, "But we already have that name." I guess I'm pretty sure there's such a story. Yeah, that's an androgynous name. Like that's what do you say?
both boys?
No, two girls, two second names on girls. I could be. I have to double check the story. I shouldn't just say it without the. Yeah. I have to double check the details on that story. But there's so many of these pratistic shaylas. I think next week we'll get into some of these pratistic shaylas of like which names yeah, which names no, and etc. There's many chuvas, many much greater than that. To be continued in Mitzvah Hashem.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.